Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Prabhupāda. Chapter 49. Krishna erects the Dvārakā fort. After his death, Kamsa's two wives became widows. According to Vedic civilization, a woman is never independent. She has 3 stages of life. In childhood, a woman should live under the protection of her father. A youthful woman should live under the protection of her young husband. And in the event of the death of her husband, she should live either under the protection of her grown-up children, or if she has no grown-up children, she must go back to her father and live as a widow under his protection. It appears that Kamsa had no grown-up sons. After becoming widows, his wives returned to the shelter of their father. Kamsa had 2 queens. One was Asti and the other Prapti, and both happened to be the daughters of King Jarasandha, the lord of the Bihar province, known in those days as Magadharaj. After reaching home, both queens explained their awkward position following Kamsa's death. The king of Magadha, Jarasandha, was mortified on hearing their pitiable condition due to the slaughter. When informed of the death of Kamsa, Jarasandha decided on the spot that he would rid the world of all the members of the Yadu dynasty. He decided that since Krishna had killed Kamsa, the whole dynasty of the Yadus should be killed. He began to make extensive arrangements to attack the kingdom of Mathura with his innumerable military phalanxes, consisting of many thousands of chariots, horses, elephants, and infantry soldiers. Jarasandha prepared 13 such military phalanxes in order to retaliate the death of Kamsa. Taking with him all his military strength, he attacked the capital of the Yadu kings, Mathura, surrounding it from all directions. Sri Krishna, who appeared as an ordinary human being, saw the immense strength of Jarasandha, which appeared as an ocean about to cover a beach at any moment. He also perceived that the inhabitants of Mathura were overwhelmed with fear. He began to think within himself about the situation of his mission as an incarnation and how to tackle the present situation before him. His mission was to diminish the overburdened population of the whole world. Therefore, he took the opportunity of facing so many men, chariots, elephants, and horses. The military strength of Jarasandha had appeared before him, and he decided to kill the entire force of Jarasandha so that they would not be able to go back and again reorganize their military strength. While Lord Krishna was thinking in that way, 2 military chariots, fully equipped with drivers, weapons, flags, and other implements, arrived for him from outer space. Krishna saw the 2 chariots present before him and immediately addressed his attendant brother, Balaram, who is also known as Sankarshan. My dear elder brother, you are the best among the Aryans. You are the lord of the universe, and specifically, you are the protector of the Yadu dynasty. The members of the Yadu dynasty sense great danger before the soldiers of Jarasandha, and they are very much aggrieved. Just to give them protection, your chariot is also here, filled with military weapons. I request you to sit down on your chariot and kill all these soldiers, the entire military strength of the enemy. Naturally, both of us have descended on this earth just to annihilate such unnecessary bellicose forces and to give protection to the pious devotees. So we have the opportunity to fulfill our mission. Please let us execute it. Thus, Krishna and Balaram, the descendants of the Gadadha king, Dasharha, decided to annihilate the 13 military companies of Jarasandha. Krishna went upon the chariot on which Dvārakā was the driver, and with a small army, and, to the blowing of conch shells, he came out of the city of Mathura. Curiously enough, although the other party was equipped with greater military strength, just after hearing the vibration of Krishna's conch shell, their hearts were shaken. When Jarasandha saw both Balaram and Krishna, he was a little bit compassionate because both Krishna and Balaram happened to be related to him as grandsons. He specifically addressed Krishna as Purushottama, meaning the lowest among men. Actually, Krishna is known in all Vedic literatures as Purushottama, the highest among men. Jarasandha had no intention of addressing Krishna as Purushottama, But great scholars have determined the true meaning of the word Purushottama to be one who makes all other personalities go downward. Actually, no one can be equal to or greater than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Jarasandha said, "It will be a great dishonor for me to fight with boys like Krishna and Balaram." Because Krishna had killed Kamsa, Jarasandha specifically addressed him as the killer of his own relatives. Kamsa had killed so many of his own nephews, yet Jarasandha did not take notice of it. But because Krishna had killed his maternal uncle Kamsa, Jarasandha tried to criticize him. That is the way of demoniac dealing. Demons do not try to find their own faults, but try to find the faults of their friends. Jarasandha also criticized Krishna for not even being a Kshatriya. Because he was raised by Maharaj Nanda, Krishna was not a Kshatriya, but a Vaishya. Vaishyas are generally called Guptas, and the word Gupta can also be used to mean hidden. So Krishna was both hidden and raised by Nanda Maharaj. Jarasandha accused Krishna of 3 faults: that he had killed his own maternal uncle, that he was hidden in his childhood, and that he was not even a Kshatriya. And therefore Jarasandha felt ashamed to fight with him. Next he turned toward Balaram and addressed him. "You, Balaram, if you like, you can fight along with him, and if you have patience, then you can wait to be killed by my arrows. Thus you can be promoted to heaven." It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita that a Kshatriya can become benefited in 2 ways while fighting. If a Kshatriya gains victory in the fight, he enjoys the results of victory. But even if he is killed in the fight, he is promoted to the heavenly kingdom. After hearing Jarasandha speak in that way, Krishna answered, "My dear King Jarasandha, those who are heroes do not talk much. Rather, they show their prowess. Because you are talking much, it appears that you are assured of your death in this battle. We do not care to hear you anymore, because it is useless to hear the words of a person who is going to die or one who is very distressed." In order to fight with Krishna, Jarasandha surrounded him from all sides with great military strength, and the sun appeared covered by the cloudy air and dust. Similarly, Krishna, the Supreme Sun, was covered by the military strength of Jarasandha. Krishna's and Balaram's chariots were marked with pictures of Garuda and palm trees. The women of Mathura were all standing on the tops of the houses and palaces and gates to see the wonderful fight. But when Krishna's chariot was surrounded by Jarasandha's military force, they became so frightened that some of them fainted. Krishna saw himself overwhelmed by the military strength of Jarasandha. His small number of soldiers were being harassed by them, so he immediately took up his bow named Sharanga. He began to take his arrows from their case, and one after another he set them on the bowstring and shot them toward the enemy. They were so accurate that the elephants, horses, and infantry soldiers of Jarasandha were quickly killed. The incessant arrows thrown by Krishna appeared as a whirlwind of blazing fire, killing all the military strength of Jarasandha. As Krishna released his arrows, gradually all the elephants began to fall down, their heads severed by the arrows. Similarly, all the horses fell, and the chariots also, along with their flags. The chariot fighters and the chariot drivers fell as well. Almost all the infantry soldiers fell on the field of battle, their heads, hands, and legs cut off. In this way, many thousands of elephants and horses were killed, and their blood began to flow just like the waves of a river. In that river, the severed arms of the men appeared to be snakes, their heads appeared to be tortoises, and the dead bodies of the elephants appeared to be small islands. The dead horses appeared to be sharks. By the arrangement of the Supreme Will, there was a great river of blood filled with paraphernalia. The hands and legs of the infantry soldiers were floating like seaweed, and the floating bows of the soldiers appeared to be waves of the river. And all the jewelry from the bodies of the soldiers and commanders appeared to be so many pebbles flowing down the river of blood. Lord Balaram, who is also known as Sankarshan, began to fight with his club in such a heroic way that the river of blood created by Krishna overflooded. Those who were cowards became very much afraid upon seeing the ghastly and horrible scene, and those who were heroes began to talk delightedly among themselves about the heroism of the 2 brothers. Although Jarasandha was equipped with a vast ocean of military strength, the fighting of Lord Krishna and Balaram converted the whole situation into a ghastly scene which was far beyond ordinary fighting. Persons of ordinary mind cannot estimate how it could be possible, but when such activities are accepted as pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, under whose will everything is possible, then this can be understood. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is creating, maintaining, and dissolving the cosmic manifestation by His will only. For Him to create such a vast scene of devastation while fighting with an enemy is not so wonderful. And yet, because Krishna and Balaram were fighting with Jarasandha just like ordinary human beings, the affair appeared to be wonderful. All the soldiers of Jarasandha were killed, and he was the only one left alive. Certainly, he became very depressed at this point. Sri Balaram immediately arrested him, just as with great strength, one lion captures another lion. But while Lord Balaram was binding Jarasandha with the rope of Varuna and ordinary ropes also, Lord Krishna, with a greater plan in mind for the future, asked him not to arrest him. Jarasandha was then released by Krishna. As a great fighting hero, Jarasandha became very much ashamed, and he decided that he would no longer live as a king, but would resign from his position in the royal order and go to the forest to practice meditation under severe austerities and penances. As he was returning home with other royal friends, however, they advised him not to retire, but to regain strength to fight again with Krishna in the near future. The princely friends of Jarasandha began to instruct him that ordinarily it would not have been possible for him to have been defeated by the strength of the Yadu kings, but the defeat which he had experienced was simply due to his ill luck. The princely order encouraged King Jarasandha. His fighting, they said, was certainly heroic. Therefore, he should not take his defeat very seriously, as it was due only to his past mistakes. After all, there was no fault in his fighting. In this way, Jarasandha, the king of Magadha province, having lost all his strength and having been insulted by his arrest and subsequent release, could do nothing but return to his kingdom. Thus, Lord Krishna conquered the soldiers of Jarasandha. Although Krishna's army was tiny in comparison to Jarasandha's, not a pinch of his strength was lost, whereas all of Jarasandha's men were killed. At that time, the denizens of heaven became very pleased and began to offer their respects by chanting in glorification of the Lord and by showering him with flowers. They accepted the victory with great appreciation. Jarasandha returned to his kingdom, and Mathura city was made safe from the danger of an imminent attack. The citizens of Mathura organized the combined services of a circus of professional singers, like suttas, magadhas, and poets, who could compose nice songs, and they began to chant the victory glorification of Lord Krishna. When Lord Krishna entered the city after the victory, many bugles, conches, and kettle drums were sounded, and the vibrations of various musical instruments like barya, turya, veena, flute, and mridanga all joined together to make a beautiful reception. While Krishna was entering, the whole city was very much cleansed. All the different streets and roads were sprinkled with water, and the inhabitants, being joyous, decorated their respective houses, roads, and shops with flags and festoons. The Brahmins chanted Vedic mantras at numerous places. The people constructed road crossings, entrances, lanes, and streets. When Lord Krishna was entering the nicely decorated city of Mathura in a festive attitude, the ladies and girls of Mathura prepared different kinds of flower garlands to make the ceremony more auspicious. In accordance with the Vedic custom, they took yogurt mixed with freshly grown green grass and began to strew it here and there to make the victory jubilation even more auspicious. As Krishna passed through the street, all the ladies and women began to regard him with great affection. Krishna and Balaram carried various kinds of booty, ornaments, and jewels carefully collected from the battlefield and presented them to King Ugrasen. Krishna thus offered his respect to his grandfather because he was at that time the crowned king of the Yadu dynasty. Jarasandha, the king of Magadha, not only besieged the city of Mathura once, but he attacked it 17 times in the same way, equipped with the same number of military phalanxes. Each and every time he was defeated, and all his soldiers were killed by Krishna, and each time he had to return disappointed in the same way. Each time, the princely order of the Yadu dynasty arrested Jarasandha in the same way and again released him in an insulting manner. And each time Jarasandha shamelessly returned home. While Jarasandha was attempting one such attack, a Yavana king somewhere to the south of Mathura became attracted by the opulence of the Yadu dynasty and also attacked the city. It is said that the king of the Yavanas, known as Kalyavan, was induced to attack by Narada. This story is narrated in the Vishnu Purana. Once, Gargamuni, the priest of the Yadu dynasty, was taunted by his brother-in-law. When the kings of the Yadu dynasty heard the taunt, they laughed at him, and Gargamuni became angry at the Yadu kings. He decided that he would produce someone who would be very fearful to the Yadu dynasty. So he pleased Lord Shiva and received from him the benediction of a son. He begot this son, Kalyavan, in the wife of a Yavana king. This Kalyavan inquired from Narada, "Who are the most powerful kings in the world?" Narada informed him that the Yadus were the most powerful. Being thus informed by Narada, Kalyavan attacked the city of Mathura at the same time that Jarasandha attempted to attack it for the 18th time. Kalyavan was very anxious to declare war on a king of the world who would be a suitable combatant for him, but he had not found any. However, being informed about Mathura by Narada, he thought it wise to attack this city. When he attacked Mathura, he brought with him 30 million Yavana soldiers. When Mathura was thus besieged, Lord Sri Krishna began to consider how much the Yadu dynasty was in distress, being threatened by the attacks of two formidable enemies, Jarasandha and Kalyavan. Time was growing very short. Kalyavan was already besieging Mathura from all sides, and it was expected that the next day Jarasandha would also come, equipped with the same number of divisions of soldiers as in his previous 17 attempts. Krishna was certain that Jarasandha would take advantage of the opportunity to capture Mathura when it was also being besieged by Kalyavan. He therefore thought it wise to take precautionary measures to defend the strategic points of Mathura. If both Krishna and Balaram were engaged in fighting with Kalyavan at one place, Jarasandha might come at another place to attack the whole Yadu family and take his revenge. Jarasandha was very powerful, and having been defeated 17 times, he might vengefully kill all the members of the Yadu family or arrest them and take them to his kingdom. Krishna therefore decided to construct a formidable fort in a place where no two-legged animal, either man or demon, could enter. He decided to keep his relatives there so that he would then be free to fight with the enemy. It appears that formerly Dvārakā was also part of the kingdom of Mathura, because in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam it is stated that Krishna constructed a fort in the midst of the sea. Remnants of the fort which Krishna constructed are still existing on the Bay of Dvārakā. He first of all constructed a very strong wall covering 96 square miles, and the wall itself was within the sea. It was certainly wonderful and was planned and constructed by Vishvakarma. No ordinary architect could construct such a fort within the sea, but an architect like Vishvakarma, who is considered to be the engineer among the demigods, can execute such wonderful craftsmanship anywhere in any part of the universe. If huge planets can be floated in weightlessness in the outer space by the arrangement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, surely the architectural construction of a fort within the sea, covering a space of 96 square miles, was not a very wonderful act. It is stated in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam that this new, well-constructed city, developed within the sea, had regular planned roads, streets, and lanes. Not only were there well-planned roads, streets, and lanes, but there were well-planned paths and gardens filled with plants known as kalpavrikshas, or desire trees. These desire trees are not like ordinary trees of the material world. The desire trees are found in the spiritual world. By Krishna's supreme will, everything is possible. So such desire trees were planted in the city of Dvārakā, constructed by Krishna. The city was also filled with many palaces and gopuras, or big gates. These gopuras are still found in some of the larger temples. They are very high and constructed with extreme artistic skill. Such palaces and gates held golden water pots, kalash. These water pots on the gates or in the palaces are considered to be auspicious signs. Almost all the palaces were skyscrapers. In each and every house there were big pots of gold and silver and grains stocked in underground rooms. And there were many golden water pots within the rooms. The bedrooms were all bedecked with jewels, and the floors were mosaic pavements of Marakata jewels. The Vishnu deity, worshipped by the descendants of Yadu, was installed in each house in the city. The residential quarters were so arranged that the different castes, Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Sudras, had their respective quarters. It appears from this that the caste system was existing even at that time. In the center of the city, there was another residential quarter made specifically for King Ugrasen. This place was the most dazzling of all the houses. When the demigods saw that Krishna was constructing a particular city of his own choice, they sent the celebrated Parijata flower of the heavenly planet to be planted in the new city, and they also sent a parliamentary house, Sudharma. The special quality of this assembly house was that anyone participating in a meeting within it would overcome the influence of invalidity due to old age. The demigod Varuna also presented a horse, which was all white except for black ears and which could run at the speed of the mind. Kuvera, the treasurer of the demigods, presented the art of attaining the 8 perfectional stages of material opulences. In this way, all the demigods began to present their respective gifts according to their different capacities. There are 33 million demigods, and each of them is entrusted with a particular department of universal management. All the demigods took the opportunity of the Supreme Personality of Godhead's constructing a city of his own choice to present their respective gifts, making the city of Mathura unique within the universe. This proves that there are undoubtedly innumerable demigods, but none of them are independent of Krishna. As stated in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna is the Supreme Master, and all others are servants. So all the servants took the opportunity of rendering service to Krishna when he was personally present within this universe. This example should be followed by all, especially those who are Krishna conscious, for they should serve Krishna by their respective abilities. When the new city was fully constructed according to plan, Krishna transferred all the inhabitants of Mathura and entrusted Sri Balaram as the city father. After this, he consulted with Balaram, and being garlanded with lotus flowers, he came out of the city to meet Kalyavan, who had already seized Mathura without taking up any weapons. When Krishna came out of the city, Kalyavan, who had never seen Krishna before, saw him to be extraordinarily beautiful, dressed in yellow garments. Passing through his assembly of soldiers, Krishna appeared like the moon in the sky, passing through the assembled clouds. Kalyavan was fortunate enough to see the lines of Shrivats, a particular impression on the chest of Sri Krishna, and the Kaustubha jewel which he was wearing. Kalyavan saw him, however, in his Vishnu form, with a well-built body, with 4 hands, and eyes like newly blooming lotus petals. Krishna appeared blissful, with a handsome forehead and beautiful face, with smiling restless eyes and moving earrings. Before seeing Krishna, Kalyavan had heard about him from Narada, and now the descriptions of Narada were confirmed. He noticed Krishna's specific marks and the jewels on his chest, his beautiful garland of lotus flowers, his lotus-like eyes, and similar beautiful bodily features. He concluded that this beautiful personality must be Vāsadeva because every description of Narada's which he had heard previously was substantiated by the presence of Krishna. Kalyavan was very much astonished to see that he was passing through without any weapon in his hands and without any chariot. He was simply walking on foot. Kalyavan had come to fight with Krishna, and yet he had sufficient principles not to take up any kind of weapon. He decided to fight with him hand to hand. Thus he prepared to capture Krishna and fight. Krishna, however, went ahead without looking at Kalyavan, and Kalyavan began to follow him with a desire to capture him. But in spite of all his swift running, he could not capture Krishna. Krishna cannot be captured even by the mental speed attained by great yogis. He can be captured only by devotional service, and Kalyavan was not practiced in devotional service. He wanted to capture Krishna, and as he could not do so, he was following him from behind. Kalyavan began running very fast, and he was thinking, "Now I am nearer, I will capture him." but he could not. Krishna led him far away, and he entered the cave of a hill. Kalyavan thought that Krishna was trying to avoid fighting with him and was therefore taking shelter of the cave. He began to chastise him with the following words. "O you, Krishna, I heard that you are a great hero born in the dynasty of Yadu, but I see that you are verily running away from fighting like a coward. It is not worthy of your good name and family tradition." Kalyavan was following, running very fast, but still he could not catch Krishna because he was not freed from all contaminations of sinful life. According to the Vedic culture, anyone who does not live following the regulative principles of life observed by the higher castes, like the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and even the laborer class, is called malecha. The Vedic social situation is so planned that persons who are accepted as Shudras can gradually be elevated to the position of Brahmins by the cultural advancement known as samskara, or the purificatory process. The version of the Vedic scriptures is that no one becomes a Brahmin or a malecha simply by birth. By birth, everyone is accepted as Shudra. One has to elevate himself by the purificatory process to the stage of Brahminical life. If he doesn't, if he degrades himself further, then he is called malecha. Kalyavan belonged to the class of malecha and yavanas. He was contaminated by sinful activities and could not approach Krishna. The principles from which higher class men are restricted, namely illicit sex indulgence, meat eating, gambling, and intoxication, are part and parcel of the lives of the malechas and yavanas. Being bound by such sinful activities, one cannot make any advancement in God realization. The Bhagavad Gita confirms that only one who is completely freed from all sinful reactions can be engaged in devotional service or Krishna consciousness. When Krishna entered the cave of the hill, Kalyavan followed, chastising him with various harsh words. Krishna suddenly disappeared from the demon's sight, but Kalyavan followed and also entered the cave. The first thing he saw was a man lying down asleep within the cave. Kalyavan was very anxious to fight with Krishna, and when he could not see Krishna, but saw instead only a man lying down, he thought that Krishna was sleeping within this cave. Kalyavan was very puffed up and proud of his strength, and he thought Krishna was avoiding the fight. Therefore, he very strongly kicked the sleeping man, thinking him to be Krishna. The sleeping man had been lying down for a very long time. When he was awakened by the kicking of Kalyavan, he immediately opened his eyes and began to look around in all directions. At last he began to see Kalyavan, who was standing nearby. This man was untimely awakened and therefore very angry, and when he looked upon Kalyavan in his angry mood, rays of fire emanated from his eyes, and Kalyavan burned into ashes within a moment. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 49th chapter of Krishna. Krishna erects the Dvārakā fort.
Thank you for listening. For more, click here.